The signal arrived without fanfare. No grand cosmic storm preceded it, no stellar anomaly, no gravitational distortion. It did not tear through space with the violent brilliance of a supernova or the elegant mathematics of an ancient precursor artifact. It simply appeared, at precisely 0 o'clock Galactic Standard Time. Every major communication relay across the Orion Arm registered a priority transmission originating from a small, unremarkable yellow star system catalogued as Sol 3 Class 4 Biosphere, Emerging Civilization. Most archivists knew it by a simpler designation, Earth. In the observation chamber of the Harmonic Union's central relay nexus, archivist observer Kelther extended 3 of his sensory tendrils toward the incoming data stream. The chamber floated within a lattice of living crystal, each facet humming with the soft resonance of interstellar traffic. Thousands of civilizations spoke through this network: trade, diplomacy, art, warnings, celebrations. Most messages carried emotional signatures that Kelthor could feel as tonal vibrations in his body. This one felt quiet, flat, structured, artificial. He isolated the transmission. A visual construct unfolded. A bipedal organism appeared, bilaterally symmetrical, hairless in most regions, wearing simple dark fabric. 2 forward-facing optical organs stared directly into the recording device. The creature's skin tone varied across frames, clearly a species with multiple pigmentation variations. Its vocalization began. The Union's translators activated. This is an official broadcast from the United Nations of Earth to any and all extraterrestrial civilizations receiving this message. Kelthar paused. Humans, they had been catalogued barely 80 cycles earlier. A volatile species. Rapid technological growth, internal conflict frequency extremely high, survival probability beyond early interstellar threshold uncertain. Yet here they were, transmitting to the galaxy. The human continued. We recognize that we are a developing civilization. We acknowledge that we are new to the interstellar stage. We do not claim superiority. We do not claim dominance. The tone was calm, measured, not defensive, not pleading. Kelthor leaned closer. This transmission is not a request for contact. Pause. It is a warning. Across the Orion Arm, the message propagated. At the trade citadels of the Valoran Combine, merchants laughed and replayed the human's serious expression as entertainment between negotiations. On the war moons of the Creel Dominion, commanders dismissed it after the first 30 seconds. The Creel respected only strength demonstrated, not spoken. Within the crystalline consciousness clusters of the Mere Collective, the message was archived under developing species. Cultural anxiety response. In the endless gas ocean cities of the Thassary Commonwealth, philosophers debated briefly whether the humans were expressing fear or arrogance. Consensus: fear. No civilization elevated the message beyond minor curiosity. Only the Harmonic Union assigned a dedicated observer. Kelthor continued playback. The visual changed. Now multiple humans stood behind the speaker. Different physical forms, different ages, different clothing styles. Some wore military insignia, others simple civilian attire. One stepped forward, a female human, older, her hair silver. Her eyes held something Kelthor struggled to categorize. Not fear, not pride, something heavier. Humanity has spent most of its existence fighting itself, she said. We fought over resources, beliefs, borders, identity, survival. We nearly destroyed our world more than once. The image shifted. Archival footage. Cities burning. Mushroom clouds rising. Flooded coastlines. Orbital debris fields. Collapsed infrastructure. Then reconstruction. Green cities. Orbital elevators. Fusion arrays. Solar rings. Ships leaving Earth. Kelthor's tendrils stiffened. Rapid recovery rate. Extreme resilience index. He increased analytical focus. The next speaker wore a military uniform. His voice was direct. If you are receiving this message, it means we have achieved stable interstellar communication. It also means you have likely observed our past transmissions, our conflicts, our divisions. He leaned forward. What you have not seen is what happens when humanity stops fighting itself. Kelthor recorded a micro-fluctuation in his emotional receptors. Curiosity spike. The transmission shifted again. Now the imagery was abstract. simulations, industrial output curves, energy production spikes, population coordination models, logistical optimization patterns, all trending sharply upward, exponentially. Then the human voice returned. When faced with extinction-level threats, human conflict drops to zero. Pause. When united by survival, our technological development rate increases by a factor of 12. Another pause. When we believe our species is threatened, we do not negotiate, we do not surrender. The chamber around Kelthar hummed faintly as the Union's predictive engines processed the data. Probability modeling began to update. Human Threat Index, revised upward slightly, still categorized as emerging low-risk. Kelthar continued watching. The final speaker stepped forward. Young, no visible military markings, civilian, a scientist perhaps. Her voice was steady, but her hands were clenched behind her back. This is the part of the message you need to understand. Behind her appeared a star map, the Orion Arm, then Earth's location, then a sphere, small, then expanding. Simulation timescale accelerated. The sphere grew outward from Sol, covering nearby systems. Industrial output markers appeared within it. Ship production counts, energy harvesting grids, automated resource extraction networks, artificial habitats. The numbers rose, and rose, and rose. Kelthar's sensory nodes flared. Exponential growth models. Not linear expansion, not colonial diffusion. War, mobilization, curves. The human scientist spoke again. If any external civilization attempts hostile action against Earth or its colonies, the sphere expanded further. Now hundreds of systems, manufacturing densities spiking, autonomous fleet construction, self-replicating infrastructure. We will enter full species mobilization. Kelthar froze. That term translated poorly. The Union's linguistics core attempted contextual analysis. Closest equivalent, total existential response. The human's final words echoed through the network. We are not issuing this warning because we believe we are powerful. She took a breath. We are issuing it because we know what we become when we have no other choice. The screen went dark. The transmission ended. Attached file size enormous. Kelthar opened the attachment. Simulation models, industrial schematics, emergency governance protocols, population coordination algorithms, psychological conditioning frameworks, distributed AI war planning systems, contingency designation. Last line, protocol. Kelthar immediately flagged the message for Union strategic review. Priority level, moderate. After all, the humans were still pre-expansion. Their fleet count was minimal, their territory confined, their military capacity limited. The Union had observed thousands of young civilizations make similar declarations. Most never survived their first external conflict. The review board convened briefly. Conclusion. Psychological deterrence attempt. No immediate action required. The message was archived. Cycles passed. The galaxy moved on. Trade disputes, border conflicts, cultural exchanges, minor wars. The humans expanded slowly into nearby systems, focusing on infrastructure rather than military projection. Observers noted something unusual. Human colonies were heavily fortified, not aggressively, defensively. Every settlement included redundant power grids, underground habitats, automated manufacturing, civilian evacuation networks, and something else. Each colony maintained industrial capacity far beyond its population needs. Union analysts classified it as inefficient, wasteful, paranoid. Far from Union space, the Creel Dominion began its own expansion into the outer Orion sector. The Creel were efficient conquerors. They targeted weak systems, emerging species, unaligned colonies, minimal resistance. The Creel war doctrine was simple: strike fast, break infrastructure, assimilate survivors, move on. When Creel scouts detected human installations in the Epsilon Eridani sector, they ran standard evaluation: population low, fleet presence negligible, military response probability minimal, strategic value moderate, resource potential. Creel Command issued a standard directive: system acquisition operation. No one consulted the archived human warning. The attack began at 3:12 local system time. Orbital defenses were destroyed within minutes. Human civilian ships attempted evacuation. Most were intercepted. The colony surrendered after 3 hours. Standard procedure, efficient, routine. Creel Command transmitted a formal annexation notice toward Seoul. No response was received. In the Harmonic Union Observation Chamber, Kelther received an automatic update. Event classification, external aggression against human colony. He accessed Union predictive modeling. Projected human response. Diplomatic protest to 63% localized, retaliation to 21%, no response, -14% escalation, -2%. Kelther opened the archived transmission. He replayed the final line. When we believe our species is threatened, a faint vibration moved through his sensory field. Something like unease. 32 hours after the colony fell, a new transmission left Earth. It was not public. It was not diplomatic. It was sent only to Creel Command frequencies. Kelther intercepted a copy through Union monitoring protocols. The message contained only one line. No images, no explanation, no negotiation, just text. Last line: protocol activated across Earth, emergency networks lit up, across human colonies, dormant factories powered on. Across the Sol system, construction arrays that had been idle for years began moving, slowly at first, then faster, then impossibly fast. Union long-range sensors began reporting anomalies, industrial output spikes, energy consumption increases, autonomous traffic patterns, fleet construction signatures, numbers rising exponentially. Kelther stared at the data. The growth curve matched the simulation exactly. In Creel territory, Command dismissed the message. One conquered colony did not trigger species-level war. Humans were young, divided, unproven. The Dominion had crushed older civilizations with greater fleets. They proceeded with Phase 2 expansion. Another human system was targeted. Routine, efficient, inevitable. 36 hours later, long-range Creel scouts detected something emerging from Seoul. At first they thought the readings were sensor errors. Then they realized the truth. Ships, thousands of them, not warships, not transports, not a fleet. Something else: industrial vessels, mobile shipyards, resource harvesters, autonomous manufacturing swarms. They were not heading toward the front. They were heading toward empty space, building as they traveled, growing, multiplying, expanding the sphere. In the Harmonic Union chamber, Kelther's entire body went rigid. The simulation sphere from the warning transmission began to overlay perfectly onto real-time sensor data. Expansion velocity increasing. Production rate increasing. Energy consumption climbing beyond projected limits. Union strategic AI issued a rare classification. Unbounded mobilization behavior detected. Kelther replayed the human scientist's voice again. We are not issuing this warning because we believe we are powerful. Outside, the crystal lattice of the relay network trembled as new human transmissions began flooding the Orion Arm. Not speeches, not threats, logistical signals, coordination pulses, industrial commands, population directives. Every human world responding, every colony activating, every civilian network shifting to emergency production. No dissent, no delay, no internal conflict, human conflict. Frequency 0.0. Kelther accessed the final predictive model. Estimated time until human fleet parity with the Creel Dominion, 22 days. Estimated time until superiority, 41 days. He stared at the numbers, then at the archived warning, then at the expanding sphere. For the first time in his long service, the archivist flagged a galaxy-wide alert. Priority level, existential concern, because the data showed something no one had taken seriously. Humanity wasn't mobilizing a military. Humanity was mobilizing itself, and the growth curve was still accelerating. The first reaction across the Orion Arm was disbelief, not fear, not concern, disbelief. For thousands of cycles, the great civilizations of the region had developed a shared assumption about power. Strength was measured in fleets, in planetary defenses, in weapon yield, in the tonnage of warships and the destructive radius of their armaments. Industrial capacity mattered, of course, but only as a background factor. Production fed fleets. Fleets decided wars. No one had ever encountered a species that treated industry itself as the weapon. So when long-range sensors began reporting human manufacturing growth curves that defied historical precedent, most governments did what they always did when faced with anomalous data. They adjusted the data. Sensor drift, signal interference, algorithmic misinterpretation. The numbers were corrected downward. The conclusions remained comfortable. The Creel Dominion on the fortress world Threxel. Supreme War Commander Varketh watched the briefing unfold across the tactical chamber. The Creel were a species built for conquest, tall, armored, heavy-limbed, their culture organized entirely around hierarchical dominance. They respected strength because they understood nothing else. The human warning transmission played briefly, followed by the intercepted message. Last line protocol activated. The chamber erupted in harsh, clicking laughter. Varketh did not laugh. He studied the industrial graphs. They are building, the strategist reported. Rapidly, but not warships. The display zoomed in. Construction types, orbital fabrication rings, autonomous mining fleets, mobile refinery arrays, modular habitat structures, logistics carriers, energy harvesting platforms. Varketh's secondary eyelids narrowed. Civilian infrastructure, yes, Commander. Then why are they building at war mobilization rates? The strategist hesitated. We believe this is psychological overreaction. Humans historically respond emotionally to perceived threats. Another officer added, their warship production remains low. Fleet growth is minimal. Varketh leaned forward. Then they believe industry will save them. Yes, the Supreme Commander stood. Good. He turned toward the chamber. We will teach them what saves civilizations. Phase 2 expansion began. 3 additional human colonies were targeted simultaneously. The Creel strategy was simple. Strike faster than the humans could respond. Overwhelm their logistical network. Force a surrender before their industrial expansion translated into military power. It was a doctrine that had worked for centuries. The Harmonic Union Kelthras alert did not produce panic. The Harmonic Union was ancient, cautious, and slow to react. Its strength lay in observation, mediation, and long-term stability. War was rare within Union space, but the new data could not be ignored. Union Strategic Council convened. The chamber was filled with representatives of 7 species, each connected through harmonic resonance fields that translated emotion directly into shared perception. Kelthor presented the growth curve: human industrial output, increasing every 9.6 hours, energy acquisition, increasing population coordination efficiency, near perfect, internal conflict metrics, 0. A mere collective note pulsed concern. How Kelthor displayed the attached human contingency protocols, emergency governance structure, unified crisis authority, civilian economic systems, suspended resource allocation, total war priority, population directives, voluntary compliance rate. 98.7% of the Sari philosopher produced a slow wave of unease. They are not mobilizing their military, Kelthor answered. They are mobilizing their civilization. The Council's predictive engine ran comparative models. No known species had ever achieved this level of coordination. Even the Union itself, founded through centuries of diplomacy, could not reach such rapid alignment. The mere node pulsed again. What event unifies them so completely? Kelthor displayed the triggering condition. External aggression against human population. The Dasari response carried a faint ripple of shock. Their unity is activated by threat. Yes, another model ran. Worst-case scenario projection. If human mobilization continued unchecked for 60 days, industrial capacity would exceed any single Orion power. At 90 days, fleet output potential would surpass the Creel Dominion. At 120 days, humans could sustain multi-front warfare indefinitely. The chamber fell into harmonic silence. Finally, the Council issued a rare directive. Observation priority. Maximum no intervention. Not yet, but for the first time, the Union began watching humanity the way it watched emerging existential risks. Earth on the surface of Earth, there was no panic, no riots, no mass fear. There was only movement. Factories that had produced civilian goods for decades were reconfigured overnight. Automotive plants began producing armored vehicle components. Commercial shipyards switched to military-grade hull plating. Electronics manufacturers shifted entirely to guidance systems, sensors, and communication arrays. But the most dramatic transformation happened in orbit. The Sol system became a construction storm. Orbital rings extended outward like growing metal vines. Asteroid belts were dismantled and fed into automated foundries. Fusion arrays multiplied. Solar collectors spread in layered swarms around the sun. And at the center of it all was a network no alien civilization fully understood. The human coordination net. It wasn't a single AI. It wasn't a centralized command. It was something more dangerous. Billions of humans, connected, informed, voluntarily aligned. Every citizen could see the same data. Every person understood the stakes. Every decision from factory schedules to energy rationing was transparent. There were no orders, only consensus. and the consensus was absolute. In a quiet control room overlooking Earth's orbital traffic lanes, Secretary General Alina Marquez addressed the emergency assembly. Her voice was calm. "We warned them, no one responded. They took a colony," she continued, "then another. They believe this is a territorial conflict." A military advisor spoke. "Our fleet is still insufficient for direct engagement." Marquez nodded. "We are not building a fleet." The room was silent. She turned toward the display, showing the expanding industrial sphere. "We are building inevitability. The first shock." 20 days after the activation of Last Line Protocol, Creel intelligence reported something unexpected. Human fleet counts had increased, not dramatically but steadily. More concerning was the ship design. The new vessels were simple, modular, mass-produced, individually weaker than Creel warships. But their construction rate was alarming. Varkith studied the projection. Human ship output, doubling every 4.2 days. Still inferior but trending. He issued a revised order. Accelerate Phase 3. Destroy their industrial base. 3 Creel strike fleets jumped toward the expanding human sphere. They expected scattered resistance. What they encountered instead was something new, not warships, not fleets. Defensive swarms. Thousands of small autonomous platforms filled the approach corridors. Each one carried minimal weaponry, but they weren't trying to destroy the Creel, they were trying to slow them, delay them by time. Every destroyed platform was replaced within hours, then minutes, then faster. The Creel advanced, but for the first time in Dominion history, their advance rate was decreasing. The galaxy begins to notice. Trade networks started reporting disruptions. Human shipping traffic was everywhere. Automated convoys, resource harvesters, mobile factories. They ignored trade routes, ignored territorial boundaries, ignored economic impact. Human communications repeated a single phrase to all civilian traffic. Emergency mobilization in progress. Non-hostile vessels advised to maintain distance. No threats, no diplomacy, no negotiation. Just motion. Relentless motion. Within the harmonic union chamber, Keltha updated the growth model again. The curve had changed shape. It was no longer exponential. It was becoming super-exponential. The Union strategic AI issued a rare secondary classification. Runaway industrial cascade. Keltha replayed the original warning again. He noticed something he hadn't before. The humans had not said, "We will defeat you." They had said, "We know what we become." The hidden variable. 31 days after activation, Union deep observers detected a new development. Human population migration. Millions were leaving established worlds, not evacuating, relocating to mobile habitats, to asteroid installations, to deep space industrial clusters. Human civilization was becoming distributed, decentralized, impossible to cripple with planetary strikes. Keltha ran the strategic implications. If this continued, there would be no human homeworld, no central target, no decisive blow. The only way to defeat humanity would be to destroy everywhere at once. The Creel realization on Threxel. The latest battlefield reports arrived. Phase 3 was behind schedule. Human defenses were multiplying faster than projected. Industrial targets, once identified, were already relocated by the time strike fleets arrived. Varkith studied the numbers. For the first time, the projections showed something unfamiliar, not defeat, but uncertainty. He opened the original intercepted human message again. Last Line Protocol. Activated. The Supreme Commander finally understood the error. This wasn't a war response. This was a survival transformation. The humans weren't trying to win battles. They were changing the rules of the war. He issued a new order. Prepare Dominion-wide mobilization. It was the first time in Creel history such a command had been given. The moment everything changed, 35 days after the first human colony fell, long-range sensors across the Orion Arm detected a new signal from Earth. It was public. It was short. It was transmitted on all major frequencies. Secretary General Marquez appeared again. Her expression was calm. Behind her, the industrial sphere projection had grown dramatically. She spoke clearly. To the Creel Dominion, you initiated hostilities against humanity. Pause. We are now entering Phase 2. The transmission ended. In the harmonic union chamber, Kelthor's sensory field tightened. He accessed the predictive model. Phase 1 had already exceeded expectations. He opened the human protocol database. There it was. Phase 2, autonomous strategic production, estimated industrial increase. X6, estimated fleet growth acceleration. X9, estimated time to military superiority over Creel Dominion. 14 days. Kelthor stared at the numbers, then at the expanding sphere, then at the expanding sphere, then at the original warning. For the first time, the archivist experienced a sensation rare for his species. Fear, because the galaxy had finally begun to understand something. Humanity hadn't issued a warning to threaten anyone. They had issued it as a courtesy, and now Phase 2 had begun. The first sign that Phase 2 was different did not come from a battlefield, it came from silence. For 36 days after last line protocol began, human communications had filled the Orion Arm. Logistics bursts, industrial coordination, navigation traffic, emergency production signals. It was the sound of a civilization in motion, and, almost overnight, the traffic changed. Civilian chatter dropped to near zero. Entertainment networks went dark. Commercial data streams ceased. Non-essential communications disappeared entirely. Only 3 types of signals remained: manufacturing, navigation, command. To outside observers, it was as if humanity had taken a breath and held it. The Harmonic Union Observation Nexus Kelthor adjusted the monitoring arrays as the new data arrived. Human industrial growth had accelerated beyond Phase 1 projections. Orbital construction densities were now so high around Sol and its surrounding systems that the regions appeared as artificial nebulae of metal, energy, and coordinated motion. But the most alarming development was not the growth itself, it was the efficiency. Resource waste near zero, transport loss negligible, production delays statistically insignificant. The Union's strategic AI attempted behavioral modeling result optimization approaching theoretical maximum for a biological civilization. A Dasari analyst transmitted a slow, disturbed harmonic. "This resembles machine coordination," Kelthor replied. "It is human coordination." He displayed the internal structure of the human coordination net. There was still no central AI authority. Instead, millions of localized decision engines, human and machine hybrid systems, were making micro-adjustments in real time. Every factory, every shipyard, every mining unit fed data into a distributed consensus architecture. Decisions were not issued from above. They emerged, fast, adaptive, relentless. The mere collective produced a pulse of unease. They are thinking as a species. The Creel offensive Phase 3 of the Dominion campaign began with overwhelming force. 7 strike fleets entered human-controlled space simultaneously, targeting major industrial clusters instead of colonies. The Creel expected resistance. They expected defensive fleets. They expected planetary shields and orbital fortresses. Instead, they found something strange. Targets that didn't fight. Human facilities scattered as the Creel approached. Factories detached from their anchor points. Habitat rings broke into modular sections. Mining arrays disengaged and burned toward pre-calculated escape vectors. The Creel destroyed what they could, but when the after-action reports came in, the strategic analysts noticed something disturbing. Destroyed capacity, minimal. Relocated capacity, majority. Rebuilt capacity, already underway. Human infrastructure was no longer fixed, it flowed. Supreme Commander Varkith studied the projection in silence. Human industrial output had dipped briefly after the strikes, then it surged. Higher than before. Varkith spoke slowly. They grow stronger when attacked. No one in the chamber responded, because the data agreed. Earth, the shift in doctrine. In the subterranean command complex beneath the Andes, Secretary General Marquez stood before the Unified Crisis Authority. Phase 2 metrics filled the display. Fleet production had finally accelerated. Not elite warships, not specialized combat platforms. Instead, the designs followed a different philosophy. Standardized hulls, interchangeable modules, rapid repair capability, minimal crew requirements. One military planner summarized it simply. "We're not building the best ships." Marquez nodded. "We're building the most ships." Another officer added. "Loss tolerance is built into the doctrine." A third spoke quietly. "We're planning for attrition." Marquez looked at the expanding sphere. "We're planning for endurance." The first human fleet, 42 days after last line protocol activation, long-range Creel scouts detected the first major human fleet movement. It was not a strike force. It was a migration. Tens of thousands of ships moving together. Combat vessels, repair ships, mobile factories, supply carriers, habitat modules, a moving ecosystem. The formation did not head directly toward Creel territory. Instead, it stopped halfway. Then it began building. Within 6 hours, temporary shipyards surrounded the fleet. Within 12 hours, new ships were launching. Within 24 hours, the fleet was larger than when it arrived. The Creel scout commander transmitted a confused report. Enemy fleet reproducing. The Union's realization. Kelthor updated the strategic projection again. The model now showed something unprecedented. Human fleets did not have a supply line. They were the supply line. Each fleet could mine local resources, manufacture its own replacements, expand while operating. Union strategic AI issued a new classification. Self-expanding combat network. A Dasari analyst transmitted a disturbed resonance. "This is not a military," Kelthor agreed. "This is an ecosystem." The psychological factor. While material production surged, another change emerged in Union behavioral monitoring. Human emotional broadcasts, normally chaotic, diverse, and highly variable, had shifted. Global sentiment analysis showed fear, moderate grief, present anger, controlled, but the dominant signal was something else: resolve. Public human networks displayed memorials for the lost colonies, names, faces, stories. Then below each memorial, the same phrase: "We are building." There were no calls for revenge, no celebrations of destruction, no war propaganda, just a shared understanding. The work was the response. Kelthor archived a human broadcast from a factory worker on Mars. "They took people from us, but we make sure no one ever can again." Another from a shipyard technician: "I don't build weapons, I build time." And a quiet message from a civilian volunteer relocating to a mobile habitat: "If Earth falls, we keep going." That's the plan. Kelthor replayed the transmissions repeatedly. The pattern was clear. Human morale did not depend on victory, it depended on continuation. The Creel counter-mobilization for the first time in Dominion history, total mobilization orders spread across Creel space. War industries expanded. Reserve fleets activated. Planetary resources redirected. The Dominion could still outgun humanity, individually, but Dominion doctrine assumed decisive battles. Human doctrine avoided them. Every time Creel fleets advanced, human forces withdrew, leaving behind autonomous defenses and resource denial fields. Every time the Creel destroyed a facility, 3 more appeared elsewhere. Every time the Dominion prepared for a major engagement, the humans refused to give them one. Varketh reviewed the combat logs. Enemy losses moderate. Dominion losses minimal. Strategic progress negligible. Time required for full suppression of human expansion sphere. Unknown, that word had never appeared in a Dominion projection before. Phase 2's hidden purpose. On day 53, the reason for Phase 2 finally became clear. Union long-range sensors detected simultaneous fleet movements across multiple human sectors, not toward Creel territory, outward in every direction. Human expansion velocity increased dramatically. New industrial nodes appeared in previously empty regions. Mobile habitats deployed. Autonomous resource harvesters spread. The sphere wasn't just growing, it was accelerating. Kelthor compared the data to the original simulation from the warning message. For the first time, the real expansion exceeded the projection. He accessed the Phase 2 description again. Objective: ensure species survival independent of territorial control. The Thesari analyst transmitted a quiet realization. They are making conquest irrelevant. The strategic shift on Threxel. Varketh reached the same conclusion. He addressed the Dominion High Council. If current trends continue, destroying Earth will not end the human threat. The chamber fell silent. He continued. Destroying their colonies will not end it. A counselor asked the unthinkable question: then how do we win? Varketh did not answer immediately, because for the first time in his career, he did not know the threshold. On day 60, Union Strategic AI issued an emergency update. Human fleet production had crossed a critical threshold. Total human combat-capable vessels now equaled 68% of the Creel Dominion's active fleet. Projected parity for days, projected superiority. 9 days. Kelthor stared at the timeline, then at the original warning again. The humans had not rushed, they had not retaliated emotionally, they had not fought prematurely. They had built until victory became a statistical certainty. Only then did a new transmission leave Earth. publicclear.com/Secretary General Marquez spoke once more. Phase 2 is complete. Behind her, the projection showed the human sphere, vast, dense, and still growing. She continued. Phase 3 begins now. The transmission ended. Kelthor accessed the protocol database. Phase 3, strategic engagement, projected operational doctrine, decisive action. Estimated time to initiate offensive operations: 72 hours. Kelthor's sensory field tightened. For 60 days, humanity had been preparing, enduring, expanding, avoiding war. Now, for the first time, they were ready to fight. And the growth curve was still rising. Far across the Orion Arm, Creel long-range sensors began detecting massive human fleet concentrations forming at multiple jump points, not scattered, not defensive, organized, coordinated, moving all at once, toward Dominion space. And for the first time since the conflict began, human communications changed. Civilian networks came back online. A single message spread across every human channel. Short, simple, final: hold the line, we're coming. The first human offensive did not begin with an attack, it began with a map. Across the Orion Arm, long-range sensors registered a coordinated broadcast originating from the expanding human sphere. It was not encrypted, not military restricted. It was transmitted openly in diplomatic frequencies, civilian bands, and even unsecured commercial channels. The map displayed 3 layers. Layer 1, Creel Dominion, territory. Layer 2, confirmed human population centers lost during the invasion. Layer 3, a growing field of projected human fleet vectors. At the bottom of the display was a single message. Human strategic directive. Phase 3 objective: neutralize Creel offensive capability. Secondary objective: prevent species-level threat recurrence. No threats, no rhetoric, no declarations of vengeance, just objectives. In the harmonic union observation chamber, Kelther felt a cold vibration move through his sensory field. Because the vectors did not point toward Creel colonies, they pointed toward shipyards, fuel depots, command nodes, logistics hubs. Humanity wasn't coming for territory, they were coming for capacity. The first engagement, the Creel fleet, at Corthel Gate, expected a standard advance. Dominion doctrine assumed enemy fleets would gather, form battle lines, and attempt to break through by force. Instead, human forces arrived in layers. The first wave wasn't warships, it was sensor drones, millions of them. They spread through the system like dust, mapping every thermal signature, every power fluctuation, every movement. Before the Creel could respond, the second wave arrived. Electronic warfare platforms, communications, interference, targeting, disruption, navigation noise. The Creel fired. They destroyed hundreds, thousands, but the interference didn't stop, because the platforms weren't centralized. They were everywhere. Then the third wave appeared. Human strike groups, not massive formations, hundreds of small task forces attacking simultaneously from multiple vectors, each targeting a different piece of infrastructure: fuel storage, docked vessels, repair facilities, command relays. The Creel fleet responded with overwhelming firepower and began winning. Human ships were destroyed by the hundreds, then the thousands. But as the battle progressed, something strange happened. The Creel fleet's maneuvering slowed, then slowed more, because their fuel reserves were gone, because their repair docks were destroyed, because their communications network had collapsed, and because every time the Creel destroyed a human ship, 3 more arrived, not from distant supply lines, from mobile factories that had jumped into the outer system hours earlier. The battle ended not with a decisive strike, but with the Creel fleet drifting, powerless, surrounded by an enemy that was still growing. Human losses severe, Creel losses moderate. Strategic outcome: total system denial. The doctrine revealed. Kelther replayed the battle analysis. Human tactics followed a consistent pattern: overwhelm sensors, collapse communications, destroy logistics, avoid decisive fleet engagement, replace losses faster than the enemy. The Union strategic AI issued a new assessment: human operational doctrine, industrial attrition warfare. A Dasari analyst transmitted a quiet realization: they are not trying to win battles. Kelther responded: they are trying to make battle impossible. Earth: the human decision. In the Andes Command Complex, the Unified Crisis Authority reviewed the first engagement results. Fleet losses had been heavy: tens of thousands of ships destroyed, millions of crew and autonomous units lost. A silence filled the chamber. Then the production metrics appeared. Replacement time: 18 hours. A military planner spoke quietly: we can't sustain losses like this forever. Marquez looked at the projection. We don't need forever. She zoomed in on Creel capacity projections. Dominion fuel reserves declining, shipyard output disrupted, repair capacity critically damaged. Neither can they. The psychological war as Phase 3 operations spread. Human transmissions changed again. Every major engagement was publicly documented. Human losses were reported accurately. Names of the dead were broadcast. Memorials appeared instantly across civilian networks. But alongside each loss report was another number. Ships replaced, always higher, always increasing. The message wasn't spoken, but it was understood: you cannot outlast us. The Creel counterattack Supreme Commander Varkith recognized the danger. If the Dominion fought system by system, it would lose capacity faster than it could rebuild. So he did what Creel commanders had always done when facing a growing threat. He chose decisive annihilation. Dominion High Command approved Operation Severance. Target Soul. If the human home system fell, their coordination would collapse, their morale would break, their industry would fracture. 3 grand fleets assembled, the largest concentration of Creel military power in recorded history. They jumped toward Earth. The galaxy watches. The movement did not go unnoticed. Union observers tracked the fleets. Valoran traders halted operations. Independent systems began emergency evacuations. The Creel Armada represented more destructive power than some regional wars. Kelther opened the human predictive models. Projected outcome if Sol destroyed: human population survival, 94% industrial capacity retained, 81% operational continuity maintained. The Fasari analyst transmitted shock: they planned for Earth's destruction. Kelther replied quietly: yes, Sal's system. The Creel Armada emerged beyond the outer defense perimeter. They expected fortresses, planetary shields, massed fleets. Instead, Sol looked crowded, Orbital rings surrounded Earth, Mars, the asteroid belt, Jupiter's moons, thousands of habitats, millions of vessels, construction everywhere, and between them defense swarms, not organized battle lines, not a central fleet, a layered environment of autonomous weapons, interceptors, and disposable platforms. The Creel advanced. They destroyed defenses by the tens of thousands, but the density increased as they moved inward. More platforms, more drones, more interceptors. Human fleet units did not engage directly. They harassed, delayed, retreated, reappeared, and all the while new defenses were being built behind them in real time. The Creel pushed deeper, losses mounted, fuel reserves dropped. Then Dominion Command realized the trap. They were fighting inside a system that produced more defenses every minute. The deeper they went, the stronger it became. The turning point at 0.8 astronomical units from Earth orbit, the human response changed. For the first time, a full human fleet formation appeared. Not scattered, not modular, concentrated. Millions of ships, not elite, not individually powerful, but endless. Behind them, the solar energy network flared massive power beams feeding mobile shipyards, launching fresh vessels directly into formation. The human fleet wasn't arriving, it was being born in the battlefield. Varkith watched the tactical display. Enemy numbers were increasing faster than his weapons could reduce them. For the first time in Creel history, Dominion simulations showed a negative attrition curve. They were losing faster than they could destroy. The broadcast at the height of the battle, a human transmission reached the Dominion command channel. Live Unning. Secretary General Marquez appeared. Behind her was EarthBlue.com, unburned. Her voice was steady. Commander Varkith, you were warned. No accusation, no anger, just fact. You believed humanity was weak because we were divided. She gestured toward the tactical display. This is what unity looks like. A pause. Withdraw your forces. End offensive operations. Recognition of human sovereignty will end hostilities. Silence. Then the final line. If you continue, we will remove your capacity to wage war. The transmission ended. The choice. On the Dominion flagship, the High Council demanded an immediate response. Retreat would mean humiliation. Continuation meant escalating losses. Varkith looked at the battlefield data. Human fleet numbers were still rising. Industrial output inside Sol was increasing even during combat. For the first time, the Dominion faced an opponent that did not weaken under pressure. It strengthened. The Supreme Commander issued his decision. Continued the assault, because Creel Doctrine allowed no retreat. The consequence. Kelther watched the Union projection update. Human Phase 3 escalation condition. Enemy refusal to disengage. The protocol file opened automatically. Phase 4, capacity neutralization. Projected objective. Permanent removal of hostile war-making infrastructure. Kelther felt the harmonic field around him shift. Because Phase 3 had been defensive, containment, attrition, Phase 4 was not, and across the human sphere a new directive spread. Short, unambiguous, final. Phase 4 authorized. The first phase for strike did not target a fleet. It did not target a colony. It did not target a world. It targeted a shipyard. The moment the galaxy understood deep inside Creel territory, the orbital manufacturing complex at Rethkal was one of the Dominion's largest strategic assets, 300 kilometers across. The facility produced capital warships at a rate unmatched anywhere outside the core systems. Union observers tracked a human fleet vector approaching the system. Expected behavior, standard multi-wave engagement, attrition tactics, infrastructure harassment instead. The human formation stopped well outside defensive range. Then something new appeared. Not warships, not drones. Structures, massive lattice frameworks unfolded from transport carriers, hundreds of them. Each one began assembling itself in space, guided by autonomous systems. Union analysis flagged them immediately. Energy collectors, focusing arrays, stabilization, anchors. Kelther accessed Human Phase 4 doctrine. His sensory field tightened. Because the classification read, temporary stellar-scale energy projection platform, the Creel defense fleet advanced. They were destroyed quickly. Not by superior weapons, by overwhelming numbers. Human losses were extreme. Replacement rate faster. Within 6 hours the energy lattice was complete. It turned toward Rethkal. Then the system's primary star flared. Not naturally, artificially. The human platform drew power directly from the star's output, focusing it into a coherent beam. Union sensors saturated. The beam struck the shipyard. Rethkal did not explode. It simply vanished. Matter sublimated. Metal turned to plasma. Every structure reduced to expanding ionized vapor. Then the beam stopped. The platform disassembled. Human fleets withdrew. No follow-up attack. No planetary strike. No pursuit. Only one Dominion asset had been targeted. the one that built warships. Kelther replayed the Phase 4 objective: remove hostile war-making infrastructure, nothing else. The pattern: within 72 hours, similar strikes occurred across Creel space, fuel depots, orbital shipyards, weapons foundries, strategic logistics hubs, every target selected with the same precision. No civilian centers hit, no population centers targeted, no agricultural worlds, no cultural sites. The humans were not attacking the Dominion. They were amputating its ability to fight. Union Strategic AI issued a revised classification. Strategic Disarmament Campaign. A Disari analyst transmitted a disturbed harmonic. They are fighting a war without attacking a civilization. Kelther responded. They are fighting its capacity for violence. The Creel collapse. On Threxel, Supreme Commander Varkith watched the Industrial Capacity Index fall. 78%, 61%, 43%, 27%. Dominion fleets were still operational, but replacement was slowing. Repair times increasing. Fuel shortages spreading. The Dominion had never planned for a war where its infrastructure was the primary target. Creel doctrine assumed that population terror would break resistance. Humans were doing the opposite. They were preserving the population and dismantling everything else. High Council demanded retaliation. Strike their worlds. Varkith examined the options. Human population distribution was now too wide. Mobile habitats, deep space clusters, redundant biospheres, no decisive target. Even Earth. Destruction projections showed only a temporary reduction in human output, because Sol was no longer the center. Humanity had no single point of failure. The Dominion did. Sol system: the cost in the Andes Command Complex. Phase 4 metrics filled the display. Success rate, high. Infrastructure neutralized. Significant. Human losses, catastrophic. Stellar projection platforms required massive construction. Fleet escorts suffered extreme attrition. Energy transfer risks caused multiple catastrophic failures. Entire task groups lost. A military planner spoke quietly. At this rate, we'll lose millions more. Marquez did not look away from the screen. If we don't finish this, we lose billions later. Another advisor asked the question no one wanted to voice. Are we still the good side? The room was silent. Marquez answered slowly. We're not trying to win. She zoomed in on the target selection criteria. No civilian casualties. No planetary strikes. No cultural losses. Then she looked up. We're trying to end the war without becoming what started it. The galaxy reacts by day 90. The Orion Arm understood what was happening. Trade networks began shifting toward human space. Neutral systems requested human defensive agreements. The Valoran Combine quietly suspended military expansion. Even minor powers began replicating human distributed infrastructure models, because the lesson was clear: a civilization that could not be crippled, could not be conquered. The last Creel fleet, with industrial capacity collapsing, the Dominion gathered its remaining strength. Every operational warship, every reserve unit, every remaining fuel allocation. One final fleet. Destination: Sol. Not to win. To inflict maximum damage, to make humanity pay. Union observers tracked the armada. Kelther opened the predictive model. Human superiority now overwhelming. Outcome probability: human victory 99.8%, but the projected cost was enormous. If the battle occurred near populated zones, casualties would be catastrophic. Kelther accessed the human response vector. It was not positioned near Earth, it was waiting in empty space. Far from any colony. Far from any civilian traffic. The final engagement: the two fleets met in deep interstellar darkness. No planets, no habitats, no infrastructure, just war. For 12 hours, the battle raged. Creel ships fought with the desperation of extinction. Human fleets absorbed losses without hesitation. Replacement units jumped in continuously from mobile production carriers, positioned lighters awake. Dominion firepower was immense, but human numbers did not fall. They fluctuated, then grew, then overwhelmed. When the final Creel flagship was disabled, human forces did not destroy it. They boarded, captured, and transmitted a single message to Threxel. The message: it was not Marquez this time. It was a human naval officer. Uniform damaged, face exhausted, voice steady. Dominion command: your fleet is neutralized, your remaining shipyards are offline, your fuel reserves are insufficient for sustained operations. He paused. Humanity will not target your population. Another pause. But if you attempt to rebuild offensive capability, Phase 4 will resume. Then the final words: this war ends when you stop preparing for the next one. Transmission complete. The silence for the first time since the conflict began. No fleets moved, no strikes launched, no industrial surges detected. Creel space went quiet. Human Phase 4 platforms powered down. Production shifted back toward civilian reconstruction. Union Strategic AI issued a new status. Active conflict, suspended. Kelthor stared at the final data, then at the original human warning, then at the casualty reports, because the numbers were staggering. Human losses enormous. Industrial expenditure, extreme economic disruption, total, and yet human population morale index remained stable. Dominant emotional signal, relief. The decision on Threxel. Supreme Commander Varkith stood before the Dominion High Council. Industrial capacity, 19% of pre-war level. Fleet readiness, minimal fuel reserves, critical. The Council demanded options. There were none. Varkith spoke the words no Creel commander had ever spoken. We cannot win. Silence. Then the second sentence. They do not want to destroy us. Another silence. Then the final decision. Dominion Strategic Disarmament accepted a transmission left Threxel. Destination, Earth. The words the galaxy had been waiting for. The Creel Dominion recognizes the sovereignty of human space. All offensive military production is suspended. We request negotiation of long-term disarmament terms. In the Harmonic Union Chamber, Kelthor finally released the tension he had been carrying since the first warning. Phase 4 was ending. Humanity had won, not by destroying an enemy, but by removing the enemy's ability to fight. But as the final peace transmissions spread across the Orion Arm, Union Strategic AI issued one last analytical note. Human Phase 4 capacity remained fully operational, and the industrial sphere was still growing. The war did not end with a victory parade. There were no celebrations across Earth, no triumphal broadcasts, no declarations of dominance. The day the Creel Dominion's disarmament transmission arrived, human networks carried something else. Names. Long lists of names. Crew lost in the early colony evacuations. Factory workers killed in orbital failures. Habitat crews lost during rapid relocation. Fleet personnel who never returned from Phase 3, across Earth, Mars, the Belt, and 1,000 mobile habitats. Screens showed the same message beneath the names. They held the line. Humanity did not celebrate the war. Humanity mourned the cost of surviving it. The Harmonic Union in the Central Relay Nexus. Kelthor compiled the final conflict record. Duration 112 days. Human industrial expansion 4,800%. Creel war-making capacity reduced by 83%. Civilian casualties. Creel statistically minimal. Civilian casualties. Human significant. Union Strategic AI issued the formal classification. Conflict type. Existential defensive mobilization. Outcome. Strategic disarmament without civilizational collapse. There was no precedent. The Thesari philosopher transmitted a slow, contemplative harmonic. They fought a total war and refused total destruction. Kelthor added a final annotation. They were not fighting to win. He paused. They were fighting to make war unnecessary. The Creel aftermath on Threxel. The changes were immediate. Shipyards were dismantled under human monitoring. Weapons foundries converted to civilian industry. Fuel reserves redirected to infrastructure rebuilding. For the first time in Dominion history, military command structures were reduced instead of expanded. Supreme Commander Varkith stood before the High Council as the final disarmament metrics were displayed. Total active warship production 0. The chamber was silent. A counselor spoke. We were defeated. Varkith shook his head slowly. No. He looked at the projection of the human expansion sphere, where was stopped. The terms. The formal agreement between humanity and the Creel Dominion was short. No territorial annexation, no reparations, no occupation. Only 3 conditions. No offensive fleet construction above defensive thresholds. Transparent industrial monitoring. Participation in interstellar conflict mediation. The third condition confused many observers, until humanity explained it. If you help prevent the next war, Secretary General Marquez said, you never have to face us again. The Dominion accepted. The galaxy learns within months. The consequences spread across the Orion Arm. The Valoran Combine began converting military yards into trade megastructures. Independent systems requested access to human distributed survival architecture. The Mia Collective initiated research into species-level coordination networks. Even long-standing rival powers opened limited transparency agreements, because every government had run the same simulation. If humanity ever activated last-line protocol again, there would be no balance of power. There would only be endurance, and endurance would win. Earth. The shift-back phase for production platforms were dismantled. Emergency authority structures dissolved. Civilian economies slowly restarted. Entertainment networks returned. Art, music, debate, disagreement, human conflict frequency rose again. Union observers noted the change with curiosity. Kelthor reviewed the data. During crisis, unity absolute. During peace, diversity restored. The Thesari analyst asked the question, why do they not remain unified? Kelthor replayed a human public address to answer. Secretary General Marquez stood before the restored United Assembly, her voice carried across every human world. Unity is a survival state, she paused. Diversity is how we live. The truth of the warning months after the conflict. Humanity released the full archive of Last Line Protocol to the Harmonic Union. Kelthor studied the original design documents. The protocol had not been created after the Creel attack. It had existed for decades, built quietly, maintained silently, never activated. At the top of the file was the original design principle. If deterrence fails, survival must not. Kelthor realized something unsettling. Humanity had never believed the galaxy would listen. The warning had not been a threat. It had been a statement of intent. The final transmission 1 year after the war, a new message left Earth. It was sent openly, across every major communication network in the Orion Arm. Not long, not dramatic. Secretary General Marquez appeared one last time. No military background, no fleet projections, just Earth behind her, blue, alive. She spoke calmly. To the civilizations of the Orion Arm. Pause. Humanity does not seek expansion through conquest. Another pause. We do not seek dominance. She leaned forward slightly. But we will never again face extinction because someone thought we were weak. The screen shifted, the industrial sphere appeared. Smaller now, stable but still vast, still growing, slowly, steadily. Then her final words. We issued a warning once, silence. Now you understand it. Transmission ended. The philosophical record in the Harmonic Union archives. Kelthor completed the final entry. Human strategic profile, updated threat level, conditional aggression probability, low escalation response, extreme survival, priority, absolute. He added a personal observation, something archivists rarely did. Humanity is not dangerous because of its weapons. He paused. Humanity is dangerous because it refuses to die. The galaxy's new balance. Years later, conflicts still occurred across the Orion Arm. Border disputes, trade tensions, cultural clashes. But one pattern emerged. Whenever a conflict began to escalate toward total war, a quiet question appeared in strategic councils. What if they activate? Human fleets rarely intervened. Human diplomacy was measured. Human expansion remained moderate. But the knowledge existed. Somewhere in their systems. The infrastructure still remained. The plan still existed. The coordination net still functioned. And if a civilization ever threatened humanity's survival again, the galaxy knew exactly what would happen. Kelthor's final reflection in the quiet crystal chamber. Kelthor replayed the original human warning one last time. The young scientist's voice echoed. We know what we become when we have no other choice. At the time, the galaxy had heard arrogance. Now Kelthor understood the truth. It hadn't been arrogance, it had been grief. Because the real power of humanity wasn't its industry, or its fleets, or its ability to outproduce any enemy. The real power was something far more dangerous. When pushed to the edge, humanity would give up everything: comfort, wealth, freedom, even its own lives, everything except survival. And in the archives of the Harmonic Union, the final classification was entered. Humanity, not a war species. Humanity, a last resort species. Somewhere in the Orion Arm, a new emerging civilization began early radio broadcasts into space. Excited, curious, unaware. Union Protocol required a standard advisory package to be transmitted to any new interstellar society. For the first time in history, a new section had been added. It contained a short excerpt from an old human message. Just one line: do not mistake restraint for weakness.